I first got into running, I did not know what zone 2 running was, which we'll talk about in a second. But when I figured it out a year or so into running, I was running 15, 14-minute miles, walk, run, to be able to stay in zone 2. And then eventually, a couple years later, I set a 50-mile course record, and I averaged an 8:35-minute pace for that. Wasn't in zone 2, but the point being, I did some work to get faster and be able to run faster and for longer. Right? Not even just a quick 5K. I mean, if you do a 5K, that's great. I'm not shitting on it, but like a 5K compared to a 50 miler, right? Like that's hours out there versus maybe 30 minutes, or less for me in a 5K. And so here are some things that I've learned that can help you get faster. And if you feel like you've hit a plateau, hopefully you can learn from this. I got this comment on a TikTok video I posted where this guy was talking about being in zone 2 and focusing on that but not getting faster. And so let's kind of start from the beginning when it comes to running. If you want to get faster at running and you don't run, well, you got to start running. So that's step 1. If you're watching this video, you're probably already doing that to some degree. And so, okay, we'll check that off the list. The second thing is zone 2, zone 1, or base work when it comes to running. And I've made other videos on this in the past, so you can look into that or just Google what is zone 2 running. And it's the idea of the endurance element of running, or the base is really the aerobic work, where you have oxygen, it's easy on the body in a sense, and what this does is it builds a base that you can stack fitness and training on top of it. So zone 2 work is that aerobic training. Zone 4, zone 5, more anaerobic without oxygen, and that's your sprints and your intervals and your speed and tempo work, which is what a lot of people jump to when it comes to getting faster, and I'm going to talk about that because that is important, especially if you're hitting a plateau. But in general, when it comes to training and being healthy, it's really good to have the majority of your runs as an easy run, and maybe you've heard that before. And easy in my mind is not necessarily how it feels per se, it's more about your heart rate. Because as you train that system, what can happen is you run faster at the same heart rate. So, meaning, what's less impactful on the body and what's less difficult? When you run a 10-minute mile at 160 beats per minute or a 10-minute mile at 140 beats per minute. And obviously it's the latter, right? Your heart is using less effort and is not pushing as much because your beats per minute is lower. So I started 14, 15 minute miles in zone 2, and now over probably a good 5-6 years of training, I'm more in that 8-9 minute mile range. Sometimes if I'm going downhill, I can like run 7:30s in zone 2, right? And so professional athletes or people who have been running for decades, their zone 2 is like 6-minute miles, which is insane. And I can't wait to get to that point because I could run more and it'd save a lot of time and it'd probably feel really cool. So someday. But if you don't have your heart rate zones mapped out and you're not structuring training around that, you are potentially going to hit a plateau in your training. Because if the base is not wide enough, it's really hard to get faster, or even if you do, you might run the risk of getting an injury. And so zone 2 work is incredibly important for getting faster, and everyone's heart rate zones are different. Excuse me. So if I would Google or look into how to calculate that. I sent a hard workout to David Roach in his Patreon, pay $5 a month, and he did my heart rate zones for me, gave me a rough idea, and that was super helpful. But there's some calculators online, or you can do fitness tests with most watches to be able to figure out what your zones are. I like the heart rate zones based off a lactate threshold. That's what I use. There's a couple different things or formulas I've seen. I like the lactate threshold heart rate percentages. So that's number 2, right? You got to start running and get faster at running. Number 2, if you do a lot of base work, you are going to get faster at an easier or really the same effort when it comes to your heart, right? If I can work from 15-minute miles at 140 beats per minute to 8-minute miles, I've built that base up and it's faster at the same effort, as they would say. Of course, you have your muscles and the structural stuff that you have to work on. You have to be strong enough to do that. But from the heart rate or aerobic or cardiac system viewpoint, it's faster at the same effort. Now, here's the other thing, and this is kind of one of the things I was thinking about when it comes to that comment on TikTok about I've been doing this stuff and I'm not really getting faster. Well, one, long runs help a ton if you can do longer runs that are in that zone 2 just to get your body used to going further. And so when you have less of a run or less mileage in a run, you're mentally at least, and even physically, but mentally being like, oh, well, I can run 10 miles at a 10-minute mile pace. Maybe I can do 3 at a 9-minute mile pace. Like, I think as you like push that glass ceiling, your perspective shifts, and sure, you get stronger physically, but mentally, you can do something difficult, like run for a very long time. So then you're like, well, if I run for a shorter amount of time, maybe I can run faster. So long runs are going to help. But at some point, depending on where you are in your journey, you have to start running fast to get faster. Like, I know that sounds silly to say out loud, but like that is the truth of it. And one thing I learned was I was focusing too much on my base, because once I had a solid base, and sure, it's not going to hurt me to run 100% of my miles in zone 2, but if I want to get faster, at some point I have to push that limit, right? And so yes, you can train that base, but for me, I'm at this point where it's like I don't want to just do base work. Like, I want to get faster, and like really fast. And well, how do you train that? Well, you run really fast and you get your body used to that and you adapt to that, right? And so at some point, and I encourage after a good amount of time of doing base work, because you're in a good place for it, but at some point you got to start doing tempo work. You got to start doing intervals or fartlek runs or whatever it might be for you. And so currently I'm doing a lot of mile repeats because I'm training for a 100-mile race. I want to get fast. I don't want to just finish a 100-mile race anymore. I've finished 3 of them. I want to run really fast for 100-mile races, and so I need to work on that. And so I do a lot of mile repeats to get my body used to running at a faster pace. I think intervals are great. I think even just throwing in some hill sprints or strides are great. It's just at some point, if you want to get fast, you have to pick a day or 2 a week where you run fast and get used to that, and where you run faster than you're used to so you can adapt. So I know that seems simple and silly, but when I hear people say like, I want to get faster, I've been running for years and not getting faster, and it's like, well, do you do intervals? Do you run fast? And it's like, well, not really. It's like, well, there's your problem. At some point you need to do that. I think some bonus things that help with getting faster is like good strength work. I really like leg day for this, and so after my speed workout, like for yesterday, I did 8.5 miles and did some intervals in that run, and then in the afternoon I lifted legs. That way I could get the most out of my speed work, but I'm also working on the strength element. If you're stronger, you can put more power out, and so by proxy be able to run faster and be healthy while doing that. Because that's the other thing is I think a lot of people get hurt during their speed work because they're not strong enough to be able to maintain that or do that week to week or just even in that specific workout. So a lot of variables at play. But ultimately, you got to start running. You do a lot of base work so that you can get, faster at the same effort when it comes to heart rate zones. And then you got to start doing speed work. And so I like 1 to 2 sessions a week for where I'm at. And there's a billion different speed workouts you can do. And you just got to find something that you like. Like, I'm not too obsessed with getting the best speed workout. I just know I have to run fast at some point to get faster. So hopefully you got something out of this video. I hope you get faster. I'm trying to get faster too. I think we all are to some degree. And if you like running content, that's what this channel is about. I'm just trying to help people learn from my mistakes and just enjoy running a little bit more. So I hope I get to see you in another video sometime soon. Peace.